Hello, welcome to another Guns Contractors video. Something slightly different today. It's the middle of summer. Well, you wouldn't think it with the weather we've had this summer. But we are harvesting. That's my little passion. And apart from my cows, obviously, that I have myself, I drive this little baby for a local farmer in the summer. And this year it's been a bit on and off, been a bit tricky, but I thought I'd do a video on this machine because I do diggers, you know, construction stuff is my main game, but you've got to say that farmers have been well ahead of us in machines, even technology, GPS, etc., for years, and still are really. We are playing catch up in the construction game, and you think it's difficult getting out and greasing a digger. This thing takes an hour, hour and a half every day to get it up and running properly. So yeah, quite a bit of kit, and there's an awful lot on this. I love the job. It's brilliant. This is a Claas Tucano 430. By no means the biggest combine ever. In fact, its class is pretty small, but you stand next to it and she's a beast regardless. Powered by Mercedes-Benz 6-cylinder 210 kilowatts, about 280 something horsepower engine that runs full chat all the time. And yeah, you can certainly use some of them babies when you're in the thick of the crop. It has about an 8,000 litre grain tank. I always think it takes around sort of 7 tonnes. We always sort of think when we're working out putting in the trailers. And yeah, she's a complicated old girl to operate. So I'll take you through what we have to do to get it serviced up. Every day you go combining, and there's an awful lot of stuff to moving parts to keep going. I mean, fundamentally underneath, these things are exactly the same as the old threshing engines, threshing machines that you see at steam fairs, you know, driven by traction engines with the big long belts and stuff running over. And there's a lot of belts and pulleys in this. You know, they haven't changed the way these things work. Some combines now have got like sort of trommels in them and stuff. I won't go fully into all the different details of why, but this one's sort of a more of the old school, back to basics way, and does it, you know, works an absolute treat. Just can't take the volume. Some of them the bigger Lexians and other brands of combine, you know, these monster headers they need a different way of sorting the grain from the straw, etc. So, but yeah, the old systems still work, and it's very much the way this bit of kit works. So, I'll talk you around how we are service it up. And then we'll get in the cab and I'll show you how you go about driving one of these bad boys, because see them going up and down the fields, and yeah, there's an awful lot that it keeps to run one of these things, not just running it in a straight line. So yeah, hope you enjoy this video. Please subscribe if this is the sort of thing you like. Something a bit different I thought for summer. We'll run through how combines work. So as combines go, as I say, this is not the biggest of them at any means. The main machine weighs around the 14-ton mark. Obviously, it can take, you know, sort of 7 tons of grain in the back as well. So she'll be up near 20 when it's full. And that you've got the header as well. The bit on the front they call the header, and off the header you get the reel, you get the auger, which is the bit that kind of swallows the grain up and it goes up the elevator. You've got the knife down here. There's all these individual knives. You know, you have to keep an eye on these things for braking, but they move side to side really, really quickly. Obviously, cut the plant off. You can run these things at different heights, as you can see here. There's an awful lot an awful lot of moving parts. You can get different headers for different machines, different types of crop. Get different widths of them. I think this one's around 22 foot, something like that. So not massive. But suits the sort of farm that we've got here. So it's a nice, lovely place to work, but some of the fields aren't quite as big as the one we're sat in now. So, but yeah, essentially your grain comes up this elevator here. It gets cut up into the elevator where it goes into the threshing mechanism. There's 2 drums in this. It's got like a pre-drum, which looks a bit like a mulching head, with fixed tooth mulching head. Then it goes into your main, you call the concave down here. That's all adjustable. The speed of it going is all adjustable. Again, there's an awful lot you can play with depending on how your crop is and how fit it is, etc. And then it goes into sieves, which are in the lower section. There's 2 sieves, and the upper section, the straw can go along walkers, and then out the back, that straw can either then fall out the back of this this machine as well, basically for baling, for example, or you can run it through the choppers as we do. So you've got the knives, etc., are all back in here, and yeah, you can actually see inside. If I get up in here, you can see inside some of the sieves. That's one of the sieves there. So yeah, you can see the walkers are above us. Quite a complicated machine, an awful lot going on, and all of this stuff spins incredibly quickly. You want to stay well out of all of here when that's going on. So yeah, an interesting interesting bit of kit. I'll show you the knives at the back. So you've got your knives here, which all spin round. They are you definitely want to stay away from them. That's what when you're not creating a swath for the baler, and you chop it, that's what creates all of this here. So that'll all just get mixed in. I mean, actually in some places he direct drills into this, but I'm not a farming expert by any means, but I know a little bit about these things. So you can see there's an awful lot of moving parts. This fuel tank, that takes a couple of 100 litres, I think. You'll get through most of that in a day, no problem. Lots of grease points depending on what the hours are and stuff. All belts, all belt driven, and they're variable, so you can change the speed. It just decreases the gap, and the belt then rides a bit further up or further in, which essentially changes the gearing. So it's very, very simple of how these things work, but there's an awful lot to them. You've got all of these springs here. These all have to be checked to make sure that this is all meeting in the right place, because that's under a certain tension to tension that belt. This is the returns elevator, so any grain that passes through the sieves, if it falls through the bottom sieve, then it goes into the main elevator, which goes up here and into the grain tank, which is up on top, currently all closed up. I'll show you that when it's in operation. But if it only makes it to goes through the first sieve but sits in the middle sieve, it'll go through your returns, which basically sort of like gives it another chance to sort of sieve out. And you've actually got a little window up in here, which you might not be able to see when you're in the cab. You can see through down into an open section here, a little auger that shows you what your returns are doing, and it puts it back in the front of the combine again. So that's the basis of how a combine works in a very, very quick explanation. Grain obviously gets stored in the tank, as I said, that's up in this lid up here, just in front of the engine cover that's open at the moment. And then obviously when you get full, you extend the auger out and fire it into grain trailers. And you pretty much do that for anything upwards of 12 hours a day, basically as long as the weather lets you, pretty much. So yeah, that's the basis of the machine. Now, things I like about this machine, if we're going to do, a decent little review of it, of course, we do like a review on the Guns Contractors channel. Good steps. These steps fold away as well, which is quite nice. When you're on the road, you can swing them round to the front so that it's in line with the machine. You're not any wider when you've taken the header off, and that then closes that gap, so you can't just walk out the door and fall off the end of your steps. Nice little touch, Small things all make a difference. Good service access. I mean, as you can see, all of this stuff opens up. Really good service access. You've got these covers. I take these covers off, these guards go over a lot of these pulleys here, so you can't get your little fingers caught in them when you shouldn't be. But a lot of it actually is exposed, and really it's quite nice in that way. It's quite old school. It's sort of, don't stick your fingers in the moving bits. That's the simple bit. The engine's up there. They sit up there on the back, and that's the main sort of drive pulley, etc. When it fires up, you'll see all that sort of thing moving. And then when you're actually using the combine, you engage all of these pulleys when you're on tick over with a button, and it engages them in 2 stages. It gets the back end running, and then it gets the threshing drums running, because obviously they take a bit of a grunt to get them up to speed. And then you slowly increase the revs till you flat out and fire the reel up, and off you go. It's that straightforward, really. So you never really should be under here with all of this moving. So there's never any need to do that, and I definitely wouldn't recommend it, because you can see awful lot of belts, awful lot of moving parts, but very straightforward in how it's set out once you understand what's going on. There is a bit of hydraulics. It's obviously hydrostatically driven. There's a whopping great motor under here, which goes into the diff. I believe it's I think this one's only 2-wheel drive. I don't think this one is 4-wheel drive. I've never got it stuck. I never intend to, and therefore I've never wanted to play with any of those buttons. It'd be bad times if you did. So it's got hydraulics to hydrostatic for driving it. Obviously there's a bit of hydraulics that move the auger in and out as well, and the header goes up and down also with hydraulics. So that's how all of that works. But otherwise, very much a pulley-driven machine. Now, she has got features that I like. She's got an absolutely monster toolbox in here. Grace Gun's had a bit of an explosion, a bit of a problem, and you're not allowed to wear your Stepsons anywhere here as well. No dealer boots allowed. But I think that's a nice little setup. Get plenty of tools in there, all the lubes, chain lubes and stuff, because I've got to go around and lubricate these chains in a minute. You've also got compressor reel here for blowing off, which I've also got to do in a minute, so that's quite a nice touch. Yeah, a very workable machine. The worst bit is when you block it up or something goes wrong internally, then you have to start unbolting bits to get at it, but we do try to avoid that on this old girl. And then round this side you've got a ladder on the back. Now the ladder actually comes off. You can unclip it, and then you can clip it onto these rails and access higher up in the machine. That's a really useful thing. But for now, we'll go on the back, and you can get to all your radiators here. Take note, machine builders. Look at that for a bit of radiator access. Look, for cleaning it out. Absolutely brilliant. Really good system there. This has got like a pre-cleaning drum on it to try and stop some of the chaff getting stuck in the rads, but then the whole purpose of this blowing it down every day is to get all of that out. So I'll get the air compressor in there in a minute. Very small hydraulic tank, doesn't need much, it hasn't got a huge amount of hydraulics. And then you've got the 7.7 litre 6-cylinder Mercedes engine, as I said, giving out about 280 horsepower. Huge DPF pack. Awful design, absolutely awful. Fitted with this heat guard, which probably worked when it was on a lorry. I imagine this will be a lorry engine essentially put onto this application. But the problem is the chaff gets into these little holes down here, and you've just got no way into this pack at all. And combines are renowned for getting fires from not being blown down enough or cleaned properly. Chaff builds up and it sets on fire, and we have had an issue with that, so you're just smouldering things, and you catch it and you sort it out. But that heat guard it's good in a way. I understand, you've got access up here, you can't just have exposed DPFs. They get incredibly hot when they're burning off, but it's a real pain that for us, and we're quite careful about when we let it do a regen, because sometimes it's just not suitable, and you have to do it, especially if it's doing it near the end of the day. You'd rather wait for it to come here and then regen it with it sitting around, because you really risk fires otherwise. It's so fragile in that way. So that's a bit of a shame. It really could do with a couple of bigger holes, so you could blow it out a bit. But anyway, small things. I can't believe. I'd imagine that exhaust pack's on every class combine, and yeah, it's a bit of an issue for us. Anyway, otherwise, the engine's it's not bad service access. You can get down, stand in here, and get to most of it. So by no means a bad bit of kit. Just got to make sure you don't fall off the back. You wouldn't be allowed that on an excavator, would you? You can just fall off the back of it. But this is farming, boys. We do what we want with farming. So, as with all my reviews, we move on to what it's like to drive. And this machine is just an awesome bit of kit. There is so much going on, and compared to anything in the construction world, the technology in it, it's this sort of juxtaposition really of a very kind of old way of doing things, really, with it being a straw walker combine and essentially an old threshing machine on wheels, really, with a cutting head bolted on the front. But also then the technology that you've got here and the ability to adjust things and the screens, the way it works, it is by far the most intuitive and the best sort of screen display I've ever seen in a machine. Far better than even Caterpillar. They've got gone down the screen route. A lot of things you can play with in their excavators, but this is a really, really good screen. It works well. It's very easy to use. There's also a load of buttons down here as well that you can do everything through either a knob that's down here, or you can do it on traditional buttons, or you can do it on the screen. So what it gives you here in this display setting, quite simply really, is, this is going to be tricky because this machine takes a lot of my concentration to drive anyway, so apologies here if I'm driving all over the place. We do not have auto steer, so I'll try and keep in a straight line while we're also explaining this. What you've got on this screen, different parts of the combine are all adjustable independently. There's no automation on this. It doesn't do anything for me. This is purely down to the driver to set up. So you've got the header at the front, obviously. You've then got your threshing drum, your concave gap, and you can set the speed of that. You can set the gap that it's passing all of the the grain through, and the ears, and that's trying to thresh out the grains from the ears and the stalks, and then leave them obviously to go up the walkers to the back, where in this instance they're being chopped. But it could be left as a swath for you to bale later. It depends what you're looking to do. We're chopping here, so you've got your concave and your threshing drum there. It's actually two drums, but it's there's only one that you can adjust, and you can adjust the speed of how fast that's going, depending on how ready, how fit your crop is to thresh. So you can adjust the gap. There's a lot. You can do a lot with just that drum. You've then got your wind down here, as they call it. So that's the blowers that are down the belly of the combine. They're blowing across the sieves. You've got your sieves here, and you can click on the sieves, and then you can adjust your wind speed. You can adjust your top and bottom sieves as required. Now all of that, obviously it tells me here where I'm at. I can look in a window, which is actually the window you're mounted on there with the camera, and that shows me into the grain tank, and I can actually see what my sample looks like. So if I'm not happy with this particular crop, in fact when I came in this field it was combining very differently to the one we've just been in. I was getting quite a lot of unthreshed tips and a lot of sort of chaff making its way in, so I actually played around with the threshing of that. I believe my sieves are pretty much where they want to be, really. There's not a lot more I can do there without slowing down my production hugely, because ultimately that's what this is about. This is a game. I mean, people play Farming Simulator, and some people are incredibly good at that, and fair play to them. But this is real simulator, real farm simulator, and there's a lot to play with. So the game of the combine is to go as fast as you can, because obviously the faster you can combine your crop, the better. That's production, right? But you have to balance that with the quality of what you're getting out of the machine, and you also have to hang on, let me get myself lined up, turn that on, drop that down. So yes, you're balancing out a quality, speed, production, and that all depends. A lot of it is on what the crop's like, but there's an awful lot you can do with this machine to improve your productivity. But there's more than one way of doing it as well, of going about things. So we were talking earlier about the concave, the threshing mechanism that's nigh on under my seat here. That's the first bit. It comes in the header. comes up the elevator and goes into that drum. Now, if I'm finding, let's say, that it's not threshing very well, I could potentially close the gap, right? Well, you're restricting the combine doing that, and that's never something that you really want to do for production. So what you could also do, if it's cutting okay, is speed up. And that would act the same way, because you'll be having more material and it would thresh that material it would thresh it better. Combines like to have stuff stuck in them. So if you're ever trying to do like a diminishing corner like that, you'll never get the same thresh on a small strip than you will when you've got a full header's width. So that's what you're always aiming to do. Is kind of balance that. And sometimes your crop just won't have it. You can't go any faster. It might be wet, it might be have gone flat, falling over. So it's tricky, but it's a balancing act, and I love it. You're constantly just trying to tweak it to get the best out of it, and different areas of the field can even change. You know, the headlands generally tend to be a bit wetter where they're shaded by the trees maybe. Centres of the fields generally are drier. You can sort of pick the speed up, go a bit quicker. You're not going around the edges either. There's no risk of there being tree branches or anything really in the way either in the middle. So you very much drive the machine sort of constantly as fast as you can. And most of the controls are all on this potato here. It's a bit like the Manitou potato. You've got several buttons. I can put my auger in and out on the top buttons on top. I can then turn my auger on. That's for sticking the grain into the trailer. I can adjust my reel. So that's the red bit on top. And that's all adjustable in terms of how fast you want it to go whilst you're going along. And it'll self-adjust as well to a point. So as you speed up, it'll speed up, and you can have it slightly slower than the speed you want to go, or however you want to have it, depending on the crop. Depending on how high the crop is, you want to adjust that slightly. You don't want it digging into the crop, knocking grains out, particularly in like oilseed rape and things. You'll knock all the seed out essentially quite easily if you've got the reel too far in. So you can adjust that. You can also adjust the knife. I've got a little toggle switch on the back that'll bring the knife in and out depending again on how high that crop is. So you have these things set depending on the height of your crop, how well it's grown that year. Again, sometimes it's a bit thinner around the edges. You need to bring the knife in, bring the reel down and kind of get it in, because it'll actually sit and bunch up on the front of the knife, which is obviously no good at all, is it? So yeah, there's a lot going on, and you're constantly trying to get the best out of your machine, really. That's the game. Other things in this machine worth noting, again, agriculture way ahead of us in terms of the comfort levels. This entire seat bounces with me, all the controls stay with me. This is all adjustable. I can have it off the side, which is actually normally where I have it. You can have it up, down, whichever way. And yeah, it's just way better, I've found. But you're doing a lot of hours, you sit in these things a lot. The seat is excellent, adjustable, air sprung as you would expect. But also there is probably just about the right amount of cup holders in this machine. I have finally found a machine that meets the Guns Contractors requirement for cup holders. So listen in, manufacturers, this is how you do it. What we have up here, can't know if you can't quite see this on the screen, we've got at least room for a 2 litre bottle look up here, and that's chilled as well, which is a nice touch. So you can keep your bottle nice and cool up there. We've got sunglasses storage, a couple of vents, your heater controls and everything is all up here, along with your lights. They're all independently, you can turn them on and off as required. So you don't always have to have the ones on the rear on, for example. You don't want to blind your grain carter or whatever. Plenty of leg room in here, loads of space, really comfortable place to be. Adjustable steering column, very, very nice. We've got a buddy seat here. If you get bored, you can have a friend in, have a little bit of a rave up, bit of combine karaoke. That also doubles up as a fridge. So under there is a proper compressor fridge in there. That is excellent. Another 2 cup holders situated in there, so you can keep your cans of energy drink and your beers cool, which is absolutely excellent. There's a cup holder here to my right, which is great for an on-the-go can of Monster or other equivalent energy drink. And then I've got one down here as well by my thigh for another bottle of water. So plenty of cup holders about. And I finally found something that has the right amount of beverages. You do long days in this thing. That's exactly what you need, isn't it? So that's really, really nice to see. Other features, really, it's a combine. Most of the features are related to it actually doing its job, and actually this machine is pretty basic in terms of modern combines. There's people out there who've got GPS, got auto steer. It'll tell them what the yield is throughout the field, which this one won't do. We haven't got that setting. Some of them now actually adjust, so you can adjust your sieves and your threshing and your wind, and it'll actually do that for you depending on the sample that the combine senses is coming into the machine. So, a lot of technology on these things that you can have. This is really a basic. It's not that old. It's on a 21 plate, but it's a real driver's machine. This one, and I love it for that, really, because it keeps you on your toes. But there's a lot more technology that you can have on these things. Really, the only other thing I haven't mentioned particularly is about the header. So you can see here it's telling me how far I've got it set for my cutting height. So we've got it set to 60, 68, 70, around that sort of number, 65. It obviously just floats as it goes. So that'll take up any play left and right as well as riding along the ground as you go. And I've got two settings on my switch here, so I can have it so it's set for like lower. When the crop's flat, you can just flick it and it'll drop down to a lower setting, which is great, really, really good for that sort of situation, really. But if you were going into a totally different crop that's a different height, you can adjust all of that. So yeah, that's the only other questions really people have asked me while I've been doing this. It's got a nice level of automation without it being too much. So yeah, that's the combine really. It's a job that I tend to do. It's my second year on it. Obviously only in the summer. Bit of diversity, never hurt anyone. It's been tricky this year because I'm also doing a large job, obviously, in my groundwork side. So this is kind of on the side, and I'm currently filming this on a Sunday. It's what it is, You've got to go when you've got to go with the combine. If the crop's at the right moisture, the combines roll, and we'll probably be going till 11, 12 o'clock tonight, something like that. We have done at 2 a.m. so far this season. That's tricky when you're getting up at 7 and going back to work for 8. But it's what's got to be done. I really enjoy this job. It's brilliant. I know it's a shame that there isn't really more money in farming, because I love the kit. I love the lifestyle, and it is great fun to do. But sadly, it just doesn't pay like the contracting that I do does. So it's nice to be able to dip in and dip out when required. And a lot of people spend time on grain cart for a long time before they get to the privileged position of driving the combine. So I'm incredibly grateful, really, to the farmer here for giving me the chance to drive it, and hopefully I haven't let him down. So, well, he asked me back this year. I can't have done that badly. Anyway, that's the combine. That's pretty much how to drive one. Haven't showed you the windscreen wiper. Check this out, look. The full 360. Great feature, love it. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video. If you like this sort of content, please keep subscribing. I do my best to get videos out when I can, when I get my hands on a new bit of kit that I think is worth showing. Got a couple of videos planned this autumn, which should be really interesting. But let's see. I won't say until the deals have actually come off. But if machines arrive and things go as I plan, they're going to be really, really good videos, hopefully. So Yeah, stick around for those. But anyway, hope everyone's had a good summer. Hopefully some of you have had a holiday. I know I certainly haven't. So yeah, keep subscribing. I'll chat to you all very soon. Thanks a lot.